This is a state where you can't reach the capital by road, where some cities go months without seeing the sun, and months without seeing the night. And if you're willing to live here, the government might actually pay you every single year just for that. This isn't another planet. This is Alaska. Welcome to America's biggest, coldest, wildest, and easily most extraordinary state. In this video, I'm going to show you what your life would look like if you lived in Alaska. Ready? Let's get into it. First off, I have to say this. It's really hard to grasp how big Alaska is just by looking at a standard map, because maps can be pretty misleading about this. Here's the reality. Alaska is more than twice the size of Texas, which is the second largest state in the US. In fact, if you split Alaska into two separate states, each one of those halves would still be bigger than Texas. So, how many people do you think live in a place that massive? Brace yourself, only about 700,000. That means the entire state of Alaska is home to about as many people as a mid-sized city. And that leads to something wild. A huge portion of Alaska's land is completely uninhabited, some of it never even touched by human feet. Alaska also takes the crown when it comes to coastline. Its coastline stretches more than 6,600 miles, which is longer than the coastlines of all the other 49 states combined. So if you lined up every other coastline in America end to end, it still wouldn't match Alaska on its own. But for me, one of the strangest things about Alaska is that you can't reach its capital by road. Getting to Juneau, Alaska's capital, by car is impossible because there isn't a single highway connecting Juneau to the rest of the country. The city is completely surrounded by mountains, glaciers, and water. So if you want to visit Alaska's capital, your only options are a plane or a ferry. That alone makes Alaska a seriously unusual state. And when you think about how Juneau is laid out, someone living in Alaska's capital can only drive about 45 miles before the road simply ends. Pretty fascinating, right? But Alaska's oddities definitely don't stop there. Alaska is also called the land of the midnight sun because here, the sun goes months without setting and months without rising at all. That's because a huge part of Alaska sits inside the Arctic Circle, or very close to it, and that completely changes how the sun behaves. In Utqiagvik, Alaska's northernmost city, the sun rises in May and doesn't set for roughly 80 days. That means people living there don't experience nighttime at all for 80 straight days. You could walk outside at 3 in the morning, and the sky would still be bright. But there's a flip side to that coin. When November rolls around, the sun sets, and you won't see it again for more than 2 months. So if you're in one of these parts of Alaska, there's a stretch of the year where you live completely without night, and another stretch where you live completely without daylight. Naturally, this transforms people's lives and daily habits. In the summer, people tend to struggle with sleep way more than they do in winter, and it's pretty common to spot someone gardening, fishing, or playing soccer at midnight. There's even a baseball game in Fairbanks every year called the Midnight Sun Game. It starts at 10:30 at night and wraps up around 3 in the morning. And throughout this late-night game, not a single artificial light is used, because there's no need. The sky is already bright. In winter, everything flips. People mostly stay indoors, while the sky puts on a show with the northern lights. In fact, Alaska is one of the rare places where you can catch the aurora borealis more than half the year. But maybe the strangest thing about Alaska is that the government pays you every year just for living here. It's called the Permanent Fund Dividend, and here's exactly how it works. Because Alaska is incredibly rich in oil, a portion of that oil revenue goes into a fund, and the earnings from that fund get distributed every year to the people living in the state. The amount varies from year to year, but we're generally talking somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 per person. And it's not just for adults. It goes to every single resident of Alaska. So a family of 4 could receive a few $1,000s in one shot. The requirement is pretty simple. You just have to live in Alaska for a certain part of the year. On top of that, Alaska has no state income tax, and most places have no sales tax either. So not only are you barely paying taxes, they're actually paying you. Of course, there's another side to all this. Along with everything great about Alaska, there are some real challenges too. Take the cost of living. Since almost everything has to be shipped in from outside the state, grocery prices are high compared to other states, and you'll need to set aside a serious chunk of your budget just for heating. So that money the state gives Alaskans isn't really a luxury. It's more like a little help making life easier. Another fascinating thing about Alaska, nearly all of the brown bears living in the United States are found here, and these bears can be way bigger than the ones you've seen on TV. Take the Kodiak bears living on the Kodiak Islands, for example. These are considered the largest bears in the world. Standing on their hind legs, they can reach close to 10 feet tall, and they can weigh over 1,500 pounds. If you live in Alaska, seeing a bear is a completely ordinary thing. Trash cans get locked so bears can't open them. People usually carry bear spray when they head out on a hike, and Alaskan kids are taught from a young age exactly what to do if they run into one. In the summer, you can even watch dozens of bears fishing for salmon in the same river at Katmai National Park. That image is one of Alaska's most iconic sights. By the way, nature in Alaska isn't just scenery, it's the single biggest force shaping daily life. In a way, nature is the real boss in Alaska. Alaska is the most earthquake-prone state in the US. Thousands of quakes, big and small, happen every year, and a good number of them get pretty serious. Alaska also sits on the part of the Pacific known as the Ring of Fire, and active volcanoes are just a normal thing on Alaskan soil. The volcanic chain running along the Aleutian Islands, for instance, occasionally spews ash, and that ash can disrupt flights in the region. And you can't talk about Alaska without mentioning the snow. The city of Valdez in Alaska is one of the snowiest inhabited places in the entire country. On average, it gets more than 26 feet of snow a year, and at certain points in the season, the snow piles up way higher than that. Picture this. At some points in the year, the snow in that city can reach up to the second floor of people's houses. And as you'd probably guess, the lowest temperature ever recorded in US history also happened in Alaska, a brutal 80 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. In the state's interior, hitting 40 below in winter is considered totally normal. For an average Alaskan, 40 below just means you're putting on a few more layers. We already talked about how you can't drive to the capital, but that's not just a capital thing, because most of Alaska simply can't be reached by road at all. Hundreds of towns and villages in Alaska aren't connected to any highway, and for the people living there, the only option is flying. That's exactly why Alaska has far more pilots per capita than anywhere else in the US. What a bus is to people in other states, small planes are to people out here. If folks in these areas need to leave town, even for a doctor's appointment or to visit family, they have to travel by these little planes. They're called bush planes, and the runways they take off from are often not a proper airport at all, but a riverbank, a sheet of ice, or just a flat patch of ground. That's why pilots working in Alaska have to be seriously skilled and knowledgeable. Another thing that comes to mind when you think of Alaska is sled dogs. These dogs used to be absolutely vital for the people living here, because when the roads closed in winter and planes couldn't land, mail, medicine, and all kinds of supplies were delivered with the help of these sled dogs. Today, sled dogs have taken on a purely traditional role. The legendary race called the Iditarod, for example, exists specifically to keep that tradition alive. In this race, teams travel roughly 1,000 miles through the Alaskan wilderness on dog sleds, and the whole thing goes on for days. The Iditarod is treated almost like a national holiday in Alaska, and for people in this region, sled dogs aren't just ordinary pets. They're basically part of the family and a symbol of the state's identity. Summers in Alaska come with their own kind of weirdness too. Take the giant vegetables, for example. Since the sun barely sets for months during the summer, plants soak up an incredible amount of sunlight, and vegetables getting up to 20 hours of sun a day can grow to sizes you won't see anywhere else. There's even a giant vegetable competition held every year at the Alaska State Fair, and the cabbages, pumpkins, and beets you'll see there are big enough to leave you speechless. Rumor has it a cabbage weighing more than 90 pounds has shown up at that fair. Alaska also happens to be the closest point in the US to Russia, and that closeness is way more extreme than you'd think. In the Bering Strait, there are two small islands sitting right next to each other, Big Diomede and Little Diomede. One belongs to Russia, the other to the US, and the distance between them is just a couple of miles. So on a clear day, if you're in that area, you could look out from American soil and see Russia with your own eyes. Here's the even crazier part. The international dateline runs right between these two islands. Because of that, there's a full 21-hour time difference between them. So while one island is living through Sunday, the other one is already on Monday. That's why they're also nicknamed Tomorrow Island and Yesterday Island. And one more historical detail worth adding. Alaska actually belonged to Russia until the US bought it in 1867. Back then, plenty of people criticized the purchase. Some even mocked it, calling it a foolish deal. But years later, once the gold and oil reserves in Alaska were discovered, that purchase became one of the most profitable deals in history. So, out of everything I just told you, which one did you find the most fascinating? And be honest, could you actually live in Alaska? If you're watching this from Alaska, I'd really love to hear about your experience in the comments. What you share will make this video so much more valuable for everyone watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with what's coming next. See you in the next one.